parents have to encourage their children not only for visual art but for also other art forms. Now, in a lot of case studies that we have done in Monica, we have seen that children who come to us typically at the age of 3 plus and begin their visual art training, where we are training them to understand visual art, to perform in drawing and coloring, which is a simple activity according to many people. But then I ask you the question that if a 3-year-old child is repeatedly spoken to about the letter A without a visual, do they understand it? So it simply means that, our brain has two sides, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And one side is like totally logical and the other side is very visual. So that is the reason we have these books of letters and alphabets with letter A and the apple drawn next to it. And then we have to correlate it and tell our children that A for apple. And that's how A letter is formed. And then they correlate it with the apple and they understand it for a while as A for apple only. And then as they grow up, they understand that A can be with other things also. They start making those connections. So their neuron connections, which happens in the brain in early childhood, is very important. And one of the subjects, which is art, education, is so important that when a little child is trying to figure out these things, their observation has to increase. So one of the things that we focus on is increasing their observation at Monica. And so we have found case study after case study that, when they begin to do art, and after 4 years, we see their IQ changes happening. So we have found that, there are some projective psychological tests that show the differences in IQ. And also we have an Indian researcher who has, collected a lot of data related to this, where the drawing abilities can show the IQ level changes or the mental age change. So which we record, and then we very systematically have found that that is true, and it is true, in a lot of cases. So what happens typically is that they are working on their mental faculties like observation, understanding, all of these things through art forms and art projects. And most of the time we use visual art, pure visual art, in which we use a lot of clay, we use a lot of paper mache works, we use collage works, we use all kinds of painting and craft. And we have seen that these children who have stayed and have a relationship with the art educator, who's also an art therapist, that is me, this happens for 4 years, and we see a brilliant difference in them. And even the numbers and scores that we take out after the end of the program that we give them, we have seen changes happening. So art education is very important, and every parent should encourage their child to at least have a 2-year program. In Mumbai, they are welcome to join Monica from all over the place in India, because Monica is now online. But then, if they can find an art educator who has a combination of understanding, and is also an art therapist and also an art educator, and understands these the importance of art in early childhood, and is able to not only encourage them, stimulate them, make them perform better than ever, it would be wonderful. Because parents, sometimes, parents are very, they kind of stress the child out. They want the children to perform like Picasso's, then they want the paintings to be sold. How is that going to happen? A small little child who's coming there to build his world is like zero when he comes to us first. A 3.9-year-old child is not going to be Picasso. So the sheer pressure that parents put on the child by, wanting them to become geniuses and, suddenly become Leonardo da Vinci's and Pablo Picasso's, that I think is very stressful to the child. But if they were to appreciate everything, because in the 15 years of running Monica, I've seen that the parent who acknowledged a small little duck the child has made is today a very well-educated doctor. Because there were 15 years back, I had students who were like, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And today they have like graduated, and I've seen everyone. I mean, I have one student who has gone on to become a pilot, and she was there with me for 4 years. I mean, it's not about they turning out into being artists, but it is about what their mental processes, what mental process happens in their brain. What are the things that work and ignite in their mind? What stimulates them and takes them to that level to become a pilot. So she's a woman pilot. I think it's a fantastic thing to happen, because somewhere down the lane, whatever happened in the 4-5 years that she was doing art must have triggered it, created a imagination, a visualization of a life that she wanted to achieve. And whatever you dream about, you are bound to achieve, as Pablo Picasso said.